Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 363 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels coming to you from Sandusky, Ohio, and thanks for checking out this episode. This is the third of my preview episodes for the 2025 AFL season, and I'm going to be joined again this year by Ozzie from the Bear Down Under podcast. He's a huge Chicago Bears fan for you NFL fans, and he's also a mad Hawthorn Hawk supporter. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the Bears and a lot about the Hawks. So I do hope you'll check it out. If you've not been over to my website, ayankonthefooty.com, I do hope you'll head over there and get on the mailing list and subscribe over there. Also, head over to my YouTube channel as well and subscribe there. So when I put episodes up there, and if you're not listening over there, you can just see what a beautiful mug I have. Okay, maybe you don't want to go to YouTube. Just kidding. I would like you to go there and check that out as well. Remember, you can find everything about my podcast over at my website, ayankonthefooty.com. You can also find me on Instagram, on Facebook, on X at Yank_on. That's probably where I spend most of my time. A Yank on the Footy podcast over on Facebook as well. You can find me on LinkedIn. And I do hope you'll share this episode with your friends and family. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into my chat with Ozzie from the Bear Down Under podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for our third preview episode for 2025, and I am absolutely ecstatic. Even though I'm a Cat supporter and I'm not supposed to be welcoming of Hawthorn supporters, I don't buy into that, okay? So if you're a Cat supporter, you can go ahead and be mad at me. Hawthorn supporters, don't be too mad at me. But Ozzie from the Bear Down Under podcast is back with me. And Ozzie, how are you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thanks, Craig. And it's already been 12 months. I can't believe it since
Yeah,
we last spoke. It's been
it
a while,
is.
but it's also happened very quickly.
You know what? And as you get to be as old as I am, those months fly by even more quickly. So yeah, I'm looking at the finish line of my teaching career. I could have 2.5 years left and retire with my full retirement, but my wife said, no, 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 you're going to go for 3.5 more years. I was like, whatever. Okay. You're going to probably be using my pension long after I'm gone. So let me have another free year to do what I want to do. So how is the world treating you, sir?
The world's treating me well. Yes.
Yeah.
It was an exciting season last year for the Hawks,
Yes,
and
it was.
hopefully another exciting season coming up for 2025. So, yeah, from a Hawthorn supporter's perspective, uh, 2024 couldn't have gone better. The start to the season probably wasn't as what we would
No,
have hoped.
no.
Yeah.
We then,
So
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, to start 0-5, I think a lot of us were a little bit concerned, but to win 14 of the next 17, I think we couldn't have been happier as Hawks fans.
Well, and if I remember correctly, we were discussing during the preview, they had just lost a couple of their key people in their defensive structure to season-long injuries. And I remember when you were on here, you were concerned about what ended up actually happening for the first 5 weeks of the season, and then you guys became the club that nobody wanted to play. And I don't think anybody wants to play you right now either, quite frankly.
Yeah, as I said, I don't think we expected the start, but then I don't think we expected what happened for the rest of the season. And I think what what set Hawthorn apart from most clubs last season was that there was this huge unknown, particularly with some of the new players that were coming through, some of the new recruits. So it was that unknown that I think allowed us to go a little bit under the radar. And then as we started to pull some wins together, there was excitement not just from Hawthorn supporters, but from the media, from commentators, and I think everybody was enjoying Hawthorn's style of play. And then they started to play with a bit of brashness, and I think that was refreshing for quite a while. But I think one of the things I'm worried about is that appreciation of that brashness is starting to fade, and I think it's starting to be perceived as arrogance. And I think what worries me is that some of the younger players are going to put a bit of a target on their own back
Hmm.
in 2025. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they handle
Where,
that. And
where, where do you think that brashness came from? What did that percolate out of? Because when you start out the year 0-5, you've got nothing to be brash or arrogant about at that point in time. So where was the point where that club from last year was able to basically say we're pretty damn good, and we're not afraid to tell you that we're pretty damn good.
I couldn't really pinpoint it to a particular stage of the season, but what we do know is that Sam Mitchell allows the players to play with a lot of freedom,
Hmm.
freedom to be themselves, freedom to play and to take risks. So I think, look, I think it probably started to happen as the wins started to come, and particularly with players like Watson and Ginnivan, I think Mitchell really loves their exuberance and the way that they express themselves. And I think, yeah, again, I think it was really refreshing last season, and for a lot of fans and for a lot of neutral fans, I think they really enjoyed watching Hawthorn play in that style. But I think again, just my concern is that is starting to fade now, and that a lot of clubs are probably going to be looking at us as a little bit arrogant and wanting to settle some scores from what happened last season.
Well, and not to mention that they're going to be playing what could arguably be, at least on paper, a more difficult fixture this year as well. I mean, looking at they've got two games with Brisbane, Carlton, Collingwood, who's likely going to rebound, Adelaide, who should be better. Um, I think you could make an argument that Melbourne is probably going to not be as good as they have been. And I think I spoke when I spoke to somebody recently. I just wonder really how Port Adelaide's going to score points this year. Charlie Dixon was kind of being phased out, but then they've lost Todd Marshall as well for the year. So, Sam Powell Pepper's coming back. They're going to figure out how to replace the goals that those guys had contributed to their side. But we're not here to talk Port Adelaide other than to say, you've got them twice this year. And,
Mm.
you start out with, a pretty tough run to begin the year, too. You got Sydney, Carlton, GWS in your three of your first four games. So,
You're absolutely right, Craig. And added to that is we've actually become the primetime Hawks. We're playing under the bright lights of night football, which is primetime viewing on Friday night and
mhm.
Saturday night. So there'll be a lot of eyeballs, a lot more eyeballs watching the Hawks this year. And look, I think they'll be able to handle that pressure. But again, I just want them to be a little bit more cautious about how they speak in the media about other teams, because I think that brings more attention. And we only saw what happened with the semi final against Port Adelaide, with Ginnivan's comments and Hinkley's response,
Yeah, yeah.
and you just don't want that sort of attention on the club, or on yourself as a younger player, because it can be a lot to handle.
And even though that's happening, in the back of his mind, Kenny Hinkley's got to be thinking to himself, damn, I'd love to have a kid like that playing on my side.
Yes, absolutely. Especially with especially with some of the players that they've lost, like you mentioned. But look, back to that semi-final game, a lot of people didn't like what Hinkley did and said.
Hmm.
I, as a Hawthorn supporter, I thought it was actually great. Thought it added to the theatre, and I think it sets up an exciting clash. Yeah, that first time we played Port Adelaide this season. So, yeah, it was. I thought it was a lot of fun.
So how much of an impact do you think um, Tom Barras is going to have on your side this year? Is he gonna slot in and fill a void that was needing to be filled for the club?
Brass is going to be immense for
Yeah.
us. I think, particularly with Blank, he's actually just left to go to Philly for some specialist treatment from one of the doctors over there. So his return is probably a little bit more delayed than what the Hawks would have hoped, and perhaps they saw that happening ahead of the season. But and potentially that was why they got Brass. But he's going to play a huge role, not just in filling that void, but also allowing Sicily to be a bit more free in what he can do.
Hmm.
So Sicily can play a bit more up forward. We saw that in the Port Adelaide game in the
Yeah.
semi-final. He, nearly won the game for us off his own boot by switching forward. But yeah, Brass will be brilliant for us. He'll hold up the back line. I think that's one of the probably the strongest areas of the team at the moment is the back line. And yeah, he'll take the biggest forward. Again, allowing Sicily and maybe some of the others like Frost to play a bit more of an intercept role when they are playing down back.
Now, who are you? You had a handful of players that were delisted as every club has at the end of each year. Who are you the most surprised by the club letting go? And is there somebody, maybe it's a different person that you're thinking, ooh, I really wish we'd have hung on to him.
This is going to sound really harsh, Craig. I look, it's you always hate to see players go because
Yeah,
you become very attached to them. You love seeing them in your team colours, but for what we gained in Barras and Battle and some of the younger players that we got through the draft,
right.
I'm disappointed to lose some of those guys, but I don't think they're going to be that sorely missed because of the way that the
Okay.
team's making up right now. And with some of the younger players that are on that fringe that are coming through as well, I think they're more than capable of holding their own. So yeah, there weren't too many that really disappointed, unfortunately.
You're looking at you've got your list, you've got a handful of players who are on the north side of 30, not a lot of them. You got, Luke Bruce, who's, hit game 300, Jack Gunston, who's, over 250 games right now. Are these guys going to be ones that you're expecting to play 20, 21 games this season? I mean, if they stay healthy, or are you looking at them maybe being, you know, rested a little bit more frequently due to their um, the wear and tear that's already been inflicted upon their bodies thus far?
I think you'll see Bruce and Gunston almost sharing that role. So
Hmm.
I think between them, or sorry, for each of those players, I think you'll see them play somewhere between maybe 9 and 12, maybe 9 and 13 games each.
Okay.
I think because they do play such a similar role, and because the forward line makeup now is incredibly strong, and when you're trying to squeeze in Dylan Moore, Nick Watson, Josh Weddle, Ginnivan, even Cam McKenzie when he sort of comes in, I think it's going to be hard for those two in particular for them to be able to play any more than, yeah, sort of 12, 13 games. But I guess in a perfect world, we that won't need to happen. But
Right,
yeah,
right.
heaven forbid if there's injuries, maybe they will. But I think, yeah, again, 12, 13 games for each of them, maybe more for Bruce, but I think that would
It's
probably
nice.
be an accurate assessment for the two.
It's nice having those arrows in your quiver just in case you need to go ahead and pull them out because you know that they're gonna to continue the metaphor, they're gonna pretty much fly straight and true for you. Maybe not as far as you'd
Absolutely.
like, but 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 certainly go
Well,
in the right direction for you there.
they're just so reliable, those two.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of injuries, I think particularly Bruce, he hasn't had too many, touch wood, any sort of major injuries. And not only that, they're just so reliable in front of goal. They rarely miss. So yeah, the forward line makeup again is it continues to evolve. I think Nick Watson in his second year will have a fantastic season. Maybe Orchol, he had a great year, our top goal scorer. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think that'll be something definitely to watch the
So
forward line.
since you mentioned his name, I'm going to go ahead and ask it right now. And I've only been following the game since 2016. Um, is it possible for a player to win goal of the year from an inter-squad scrimmage?
From Inter squad.
Yeah, I mean, did you see the mark that Nick Watson took? Um, I mean, unbelievable.
Yes, oh, the one that came through SA. Sorry, did you mean goal of the year during preseason training? Is that
No, the
what you
mark
mean?
of the year. Did I say goal? I meant
Oh,
mark of the year.
okay.
Yeah,
Um,
Sorry about that. If I said goal, I meant
that
mark.
that's
Yeah.
okay. Maybe I heard wrong.
Yeah, I didn't know if he
That's
could do.
that's
I
fine.
didn't know if he could actually win one of those during an inter squad scrimmage or not. But it was just a phenomenal play that he made in that.
Unfortunately, he can't. But gee, if he
Yeah,
could, he'd be outright leader at the moment.
yeah, he would be. He
It was
would
a
definitely
huge
be.
grab.
Yeah. So I remember asking you last year. Did you see the club realistically competing for a spot in the eight? And I guess I have to ask you. For this year, you were basically one win. If you'd had one more win, and you lost 3 games during the regular season by a combined 8 points. So one of those wins could have been in one of those three. You were one win from being number 3 on the ladder this past
which
year.
which was
Um,
incredible. And
yeah,
yeah, that Port game in particular, the one where they kicked the goal with about 5 seconds to go, was an absolute heartbreaker, not
yeah.
just for that game, but then at the end of the season when we thought we could make the four and everyone was thinking back to that game. But yeah, last time we spoke, I think I had us sort of finishing somewhere at the maybe ninth or tenth as a
Hmm.
ceiling. But yeah, if you asked me even at the beginning of the season, um, could we make it? I possibly not, but
Yeah.
yeah, 0-5, definitely not. And then yeah, the wins started coming. But can we do it again this season? I think we can, but I think as I was alluding to before, I think the pressure for the Hawks is going to come as well because we were such an unknown last
Yeah.
year. The 17 other clubs will be doing their homework and have well and truly done their homework over the off season about how they can beat us and expose our forward line.
So,
So yeah, I think we could definitely make the eight, and I would hope we do. But as we've seen with some clubs that have sort of made that jump, they have taken half a step back as well. So if we did miss the eight, although I'd be disappointed, I think it's probably a good platform to then learn from, I guess, some of the mistakes of
and
the season
and maybe
and then
jump
take the jump. Yeah.
jump into the
Yeah.
four then. Yeah, and
Yes.
that's yeah. Because I was going to ask you whether or not you thought this club had a shot at. I definitely think it's a club that could play in the top four. It could play for a spot in the top four because they're you used the word that arrogant. You used it's kind of like they had a lot of swagger, if you will. That was and let's be honest, they earned that by the way that they played, later in the season. Granted, like I said, after the first 5 rounds, there's not a whole lot of swagger there. There's a lot of, tail tucked between your legs and walking around hoping nobody notices that you're there, and including your own club supporters until you can actually get, 4 points on the ladder. But, you know, if you're there's one thing about being, you know, cocky or having swagger and being, able to back it up and or being that way and just being all bark and no bite, if you will. And I just think there's so much talent on this club that I don't believe that I would be shocked if they don't make the eight. Maybe
Mm.
maybe that jump into the four might be a little tough with a tougher fixture, but I would be very surprised if they did not make the eight. I mean, I'm working on my top eight right now, and I have them penciled into the eight. In fact, I think I have 2 clubs coming into the eight that were not there last year,
Mm.
and a
Okay.
couple dropping out. One is going to shock people that I'm putting in the eight. Um,
And who and
yeah.
who's that, Craig?
Uh, you're sitting down, right?
I am sitting down.
Okay. North Melbourne.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think North Melbourne could very easily do almost the exact same thing that your Hawks did last year.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of young talent. They've got some decent veteran leadership in there now. They got one of the best rucks in the comp. Um, it's just I think that they've got the coach that they have in place there. I mean
I do. Yes.
I really, and again, I'm not a Ruse supporter. I would love to see them be successful. A lot of people that I communicate with that were that are Ruse fans that are phenomenal people, but I could see them making that leap. And again, they're playing a
Mm.
slightly easier fixture, because of where they finished on the ladder. But they're kind of my smoky to find a way into the eight this year. And
Yeah.
I'm probably going to be wrong because I had St.
I,
Kilda third last year.
yeah. I think definitely with North Melbourne and Gold Coast, I think it's a do or die season for
Yeah,
both of them. I think they need to
yeah,
show some significant improvement, particularly Gold Coast. They need to make the eight this season.
that was my other one that was going to come in. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So North Melbourne, they really need to show some improvement.
Yeah.
And obviously we're talking about Hawthorn today, and I'm not
Right.
trying
Right.
to be negative about North Melbourne. We don't want to see a club like North Melbourne with such a proud history at the bottom of the ladder for
Yeah.
so long.
Yeah.
So it would be great
Le-
to see them make that jump, and I think they really need to.
Leave Richmond there for a while. Oh, did I
Yeah,
say that out
that
loud?
absolutely. Yeah, you did, and I don't disagree. Sorry
But
to
you
the
know
Richmond
what?
supporters.
I think after this last draft, I don't think they're going to be there very long either, quite
No,
frankly.
you won't be. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
I
had
mean
a
they're going to bounce
absolute
back
chest of
pretty quick, I think. Yeah. So,
opportunity. Yeah.
um, do they if they don't just touch wood, things don't work out, and they finish ninth or tenth, as you'd mentioned, you thought they might do that last year. You're saying now that maybe they take a step back. If they don't make the eight, could it still be considered a successful year for the club?
I think it can. And look, I'm not predicting that we will finish ninth or tenth. I'm
Hmm.
I'm hoping that we
Right,
make the
right.
eight. If
No,
not, you
yeah,
know,
and I think they will.
yeah, yeah. I hate to sound negative about my own club. It's probably just more just that realism that sometimes that can happen to a club that makes such a quick jump so quickly. But I think we definitely can make the top four as well. I
Hmm.
think the season's there for the Hawks taking really. Um, but if we were to miss the eight, look, I don't think it would be. Uh, Look, you can take so much out of every season when you go back and have a look at it, and hopefully it's not injuries or anything like that that would attribute to the Hawks missing the
Right,
eight.
right.
But yeah, not ninth or tenth, I would be disappointed, but I think there would be a lot to take out of it too. Yeah,
Because
eighth would be the
there may be, certain players that you're looking to see what kind of a year did they have, adjusting to new positions, adjusting to the club, being more dependent upon them and their expectations on the ground, and did things go well for them, and is it going to help to, as you said, jumpstart into 2026 then? So,
yes.
yeah. So, um, who are you the most excited about seeing out there this year in terms of their progression, or somebody that's new to the club, or that's coming back healthy? Who's that player that you're going, I cannot wait until early March because I want to see this guy doing his thing?
If I'm not choosing someone that we're all excited about, which is Nick Watson, I think his second season could be an absolutely tear apart runaway season for him if he
Hmm.
continues on the trajectory that he's going on. But for me, I think Will Day, I think he's really starting to get into that sweet spot in terms of age when players really start to come into their own. And there's been talk about possibly Will Day winning a Brownlow. Could he do it this season? Possibly not, but I think he's definitely on his way.
Hmm.
So Will Day is definitely one that I think, having heard all the reports about preseason, he's recovered well from the shoulder injury from last year. He's very fit. He's training very well. So Will Day would definitely be one. But also Massimo D'Ambrosio, I think he had a brilliant season, and really, I think Essendon supporters would have been very, very disappointed to see him go after what he did with us
Yeah.
in 2024.
Yeah.
He's another one. I think he can have another fantastic season building off what he did last year on the wing. So those two players in particular, I'm really excited about seeing
Okay.
and watching what they can do.
Okay. Who are you the most concerned about that it's a make or break year for this person, that if things don't go well, they may not find themselves on the list next year? Who are you most worried about?
Oh, that's a good question. Because we've got such a young list and they're developing, I don't think there's too many that I'd be really overly concerned about, because I think the players that might likely get delisted are the ones that are probably not in our best 25, 26 anyhow.
Hmm.
But I think if I was to choose someone from a player that's likely going to play round one, would be maybe Orchol. Look, he had a brilliant season, and I'm not trying to be negative on that either. But sometimes, like I just think he's capable of so much more.
Right,
And
right.
having watched him live, I hadn't actually seen him played live up until last season. Just his work rate, like I think he can. That's something that he can really build on and work on. I just think sometimes he can just look a little bit lethargic and disinterested. So I just think for his talent and what he can do, he's a beautiful kick of the footy,
Hmm.
a brilliant mark of the ball as well. I just think if he can increase his work rate and get to more contests and just be a bit more mobile in that forward 50, I just think he's capable of so much more. For our leading goal scorer, I think he can, for 37 goals last season, I think this season he could go close to 45 if he really works hard at it and like I said, get to more contests and
Now,
just get that work rate up.
as an NFL fan, does he? Let me see if this correlation or this makes sense to you here. Do you see him as almost like being, that premier wide receiver who starts to maybe pout a little bit because the ball's not coming his direction because the opposing cornerback is locked on him? Do you think, and he's getting a little frustrated about it?
There has been some body language, with
Yeah.
some of that, not too much. And look, I'm not trying to pick on him, like because I
Right,
think,
right.
yeah, I think he's a brilliant footballer. I just think what he can do um, by working hard and just really zoning in on that ball and his work rate. Um, I think he can really just own that forward line and have the smaller guys like Ginnivan and the Wizard at his feet and
Hmm.
just that body language I think just is the only thing that really just sort of brings him down a little bit.
And I just, yeah, you're I think you're spot on about, what a great kick he is. And it in a way it reminds me a little bit of Ben Brown when he was playing. Because, Ben Brown was a great kick of the ball when he got it, and he would get his 4 or 5 shots on goal a game. But other than that, you didn't hear a whole lot of about Ben. Ben Brown's name was not coming up in the conversation. Spoiling an attempted mark by one of the defenders or that sort of thing. It was just it was like, oh, Brown took a mark, and then everybody that lives within 5 kilometers of the MCG or Docklands could wave at him as he ran by on his run up to take a shot on goal. But Chol seems to you're right. He does kind of disappear, and I have not done a deep dive into his statistics and that sort of thing. But other than as you said, he's the leading goal kicker on the side. But I wonder if there are other aspects of his game, as you said, that he could improve upon to make himself a much more integral part of the game. And I'm this is just a coincidence that he happens to play for the club that I support. But he's his build, his body, his speed. He could almost become somebody more like a Jeremy Cameron who could be all over the ground,
Hmm.
moving up the field more than he does if he chose to do so. And as you mentioned, Sam Mitchell lets the players kind of just go out and play, and maybe Mitchell's kind of just sitting around waiting for that to happen as well.
Yeah. Look, I think he's better around goal.
Hmm.
Wouldn't want him pushing too much up the field as much as Cameron does, but it's just that body language and just he can just sometimes look so disinterested, and obviously he's not, but it's just
Right, right.
it's just the aura that sometimes he puts out there. But yeah, I think he's primed for another great season, and I hope he has another brilliant one. But I just love to see him just work that little bit harder. That's all.
So, what are the things that you are? And I know you don't want to see these things, but if you see X, Y, and Z, what's the X, Y, and Z that you're going to be noticing that you go, okay, this is not going as well we were hoping it was going to go this year. And maybe that ninth and 10th is a little bit more likely.
Mm. Probably what I alluded to earlier. I think just with some of the players that do have that freedom to be themselves and to project, I guess that swagger. And look, I'm trying not to be too negative. I'm sounding a little bit negative. I'm really not mean to be. I love the brashness and the having fun and that exciting brand of footy. The only thing I just don't want to see, and this sort of comes into the question you just asked, Craig, is just taking that beyond the line.
Hmm.
And being, for other clubs to perceive us as being arrogant and all that sort of thing. So I think that would be the one thing that I would be concerned about is just that stepping over the line of what's probably acceptable because what can and again I mentioned it earlier, and I'll use Jack Ginnivan as an example. You don't want him being on the receiving end of boos and comments from the crowd and attention from, I guess, opposition players because he said something that's upset that fan group
Right, right.
or that club before the game, which he did a little bit of, but it wasn't, it was all well intended, it was good natured. But I just hope that he can just rein that in a little bit and not take it too far.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you've got one of you got a few players that are on, like I said, they're on the north side of 30 that, that maybe this is their last rodeo, maybe not, but, you've got such a strong group of youngsters that are just, I think, the future is extraordinarily bright for this club, and I think you've got the right guy leading this club as well. Um, but what's your well, first of all, like, before I ask you that, who do you think is going to push their way into the 22 that, we mentioned Barras coming in there. Mentioned Battle coming in. Is there anybody else that you think is going to kind of just shove somebody else out of the way and compel Sam Mitchell to write their name down in ink on his magnet instead of in pencil? So that name is going to be up there week in and week out.
I think at the moment with injuries to Mitch Lewis and Kalshadir, both key players in our forward line, I think there's a perfect opportunity for Max Ramsden, he's played a little bit of footy for the Hawks.
Hmm.
Um, with those spots up for grabs, I think he's one that could really put his hand up. And he's from all reports, he's had a really good preseason. He's fit, he's hungry, and very eager to put his name up for week one or round one. So he would be one that I'd probably suggest could be a nice little roughie to put his hand up.
Okay. Okay. Um, if we're looking at, making like a bold, I'm going to ask you kind of a two-parter here, bold prediction for the club. What's that thing that you're going to go out and plant your flag and say, I think this is going to happen this year? And some people are going to kind of do a double take and go, wow, okay, that's a bold take, if you will. And what's going to be the when the season ends for the Hawks, whenever that is, whatever week that the season ends for them, what's the headline in the Herald Sun going to be about the 25 season for Hawthorn?
Okay. Maybe not so bold prediction because I think Kane Corns has predicted us to win the flag. So, um, so, so I guess for question 1A, I'll say a top four finish would be
Okay.
a bit of a bold prediction. But if I'm going to be even bolder and maybe take a leaf out of Kane Corns' book, well then yeah, let's say Hawks runner up in a premiership would
Okay.
be, I think, a safe but bold prediction.
Okay. So what's the headline? What's the headline in the paper at the end of the season when they look back on the club's 2025
The headline would
cumulative?
be, yeah, the headline would be uh, the Hawks having a an impressive but respectful season.
Okay.
in terms
Okay.
of in terms of earning the respect from the other clubs and fans.
So who's beating him in that grand final in your bold prediction? Who's knocking them off?
That is a good question. Let's go with Brisbane back to back.
Okay. Okay. Wow. That's another that's they've got a huge hole to fill as well.
They do.
Yeah, with Danaher being gone, but it's um so we do have a few, Hawks related trivia questions that I want to ask you, different from last year. But before we do that, I know you're a mad Chicago Bears fan, and for those people who maybe didn't listen to the preview episode last year, how did you become interested in the NFL, and how did you decide on becoming a Bears fan? And then we'll get into some specifics about the Bears as well, then, because there's been some news in the last few days about the Bears.
There's been some huge news. So became a football fan first. So I just sort of started watching it casually as a way to sort of fill the off season of the AFL season,
Hmm.
and really sort of fell in love with the game and followed it pretty closely, and thought, well, I better get a team here. So I'd always been a really passionate Bulls fan growing up as a kid, with Jordan and Pippen
Hmm.
and Luke Longley, who was an Australian
There you go.
in the Bulls team. And yeah, just from there, I thought, okay, well, if I was a Bulls fan growing up and I still follow them now, I might as well follow the football team of the city, and became a Bears fan. And uh, it's been great. I've been following them for just over 12 years now, and it's been 12 years of misery, I must admit. But hopefully, with some of the movements over the last 2 days, and the fact that we had the number one draft pick, and selected Caleb Williams, who's been he's had a fantastic season. Look, he I think he played under quite an amount of duress. He didn't have a lot of support,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
a lot of protection. The coach got fired. Um, the offensive coordinator got fired. So he really had a tough season. So I'm hoping that with some stability and some direction, and a game plan that can actually suit his style, I think hopefully we'll see some success for the Bears.
Yeah, I think and they're in, what you could argue would be one of the toughest divisions in the NFL. You could sort of make that, of course, the Browns were certainly not holding up their end of the bargain this year, but the both the NFC and the AFC North have kind of had that a bit of that reputation. Although you look at, some other ones there, with the Redskins, or I'm sorry, the Commanders now, and the Eagles in the East, and you got, Denver and Kansas City making the playoffs, and San Diego out in the West. I mean, or San Diego, they're in Los Angeles now. I My first NFL game I saw was in 1970 in San Diego. It's been a few
Oh
years
wow,
ago. Yeah. Went with my grandfather and my dad. Yeah. But
that's cool.
so Ben Johnson's coming over from Detroit, one of the other clubs in their division. Has kind of been, looked at as being, an offensive mastermind that's going to hopefully come in and help to mold, Caleb Williams into you know, a very successful quarterback. But as you said, they've got a lot of holes. Their offensive line was not great. Um, they played some pretty solid defense, but they just, it's a club that needed to score more points than they had been scoring. But uh, I think they're going to be a club that's going to be on the uptick. I think Detroit may take a little bit of a step back since they've, lost both their offensive and defensive coordinators, because their, defensive coordinator moved on to the New York Jets to be the head coach there. So it's I guess it's always a good thing if you can go ahead and help to kind of like, cannibalize one of the teams in your own division. That in that regard, it's kind of like, if you can figure out how to go ahead and, whatever team you dislike the most as a Hawthorn fan, if you can go ahead and maybe find, get their best player as a free agent from that club, it helps your club and hurts theirs at the same time. So it's a double win in that situation for you there. But um, where can people find your podcast if they want to check it out? Okay, if they're curious about, if they're NFL fans, which, as you mentioned something really key there as well. You said that, we're looking for something to fill the off season of the AFL, which is kind of how the AFL fell into my lap with regards to, why I'm following it, because I was a bigger baseball fan than anything. And I've not watched a moment of baseball now in 6 years. I've given up on baseball because I think Major League Baseball here in the United States is destroying itself, and it just doesn't
Mm,
realize it yet.
mm,
Where you got teams that, like the Los Angeles Dodgers have a payroll of like $330 million. And then you've got teams at the low end whose payroll is like $70 million. There's no salary cap like the NFL, like the AFL, like the
mm.
NBA has, where, Chicago or Green Bay, Green Bay is a town about half the size of Geelong. They've got as much of an opportunity or a chance to build a Super Bowl champion, and they've done that as a team in Los Angeles or New York or Chicago, which have, 10 times, 11 times, 20 times. In fact, I guess with Los Angeles, you could say that, I guess it'd almost be 100 times the population of Green Bay. And
Mm.
they can compete with them financially because of the way it's set up. So it's one of the things I loved about the AFL, and it fits, so if you're an NFL fan, um, and you've not checked out Australian football, you definitely need to do that because and if you don't follow baseball, it fits in there so well. It's like building a jigsaw puzzle. The
It
season
does,
start,
yeah.
it starts in March, it ends at the end of September, just as the NFL is getting going. It's just why you're not watching is still beyond me. And like I said, that's one of the reasons I started this, is to try to get other Americans to check out this game, because I'm a much bigger AFL fan than NFL fan, because I don't watch. I'm one of those weird people that I'll watch all 9 AFL games each week, but I'll watch the Browns, and I'll maybe look at some highlights of another game or two. But I don't, I'm not that guy that gets the Sunday ticket thing to watch all the NFL games. It's not.
Mm.
I don't do that. But I'll watch as much AFL as I can get my hands on.
Yeah, yeah. No,
So
you're doing an amazing job, Craig, in promoting the game, and hopefully, yeah, more Americans catch on. And because you're right, it does sort of fit in very nicely. You've essentially got 12 months of football
yeah,
um,
yeah,
in each country, and it's a lot of fun.
yep. So again, where can people, if they want to follow you on social media, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes, or and if they want to check out the podcast, where could they do that?
So the podcasts have actually hibernated for a little bit, so I haven't really done
Okay.
much with that recently. But if anyone is a Chicago Bears listener, I do encourage them to check out a fantastic podcast called the Bear Down Chicago podcast, which is run by a fantastic group of supporters and fans. And so check that out if you're a Bears fan. But to find me, I'm on X at a Bear Down Under, and yeah, you can catch up with me there to talk about Bears and Hawks and everything else.
Okay. So are you ready for a little Hawks trivia before we get out of here? Because I know you got to you actually have to go to work. It's getting close to where I have to go to bed. It's going on 9 o'clock at night here on Thursday night. So I'm going to be heading to bed in probably the next hour and a half or so. Although I have a bird that somehow got into my basement of my house. I'm going to try again tonight for a little while to get it out of here. I have a couple of like fishing nets to go down and try to catch it and just look like a fool while I'm trying to do it, because it just is zipping all over the place. And it's been down there a couple of days now, and I've not been able to get
Okay.
it to leave. Of course, it
Oh,
was it was minus 30 Celsius for a couple of days earlier this week here. So the bird was pretty happy being in my basement, even though there's no food for it there.
it's
Uh,
found a lovely place to live.
yeah, it's been brutal. I mean, there's places in Florida right now that have, let's see, 2.5 centimeters to an inch. They've got about 28, 29 centimeters of snow right now in
Yeah, I
certain
heard
areas of
that.
Florida. Yeah. Just,
Yeah.
which does not happen very often.
Mm.
So, okay, so here we go. Have the Hawks in the history of the Hawks, have they won more games at the GABA or at the Adelaide Oval?
I'll go with the Gabba only because I reckon when the Hawks would have started playing at the Adelaide Oval, the Crows would have been playing really good footy. So I'm going to go with the Gabba.
Okay. The GABA, 6 wins and 14 losses, and
Oh, jeez.
The Adelaide Oval, 8 wins and 11 losses.
Okay, I
So
got that one
20, 20
horrendously
games
wrong.
and 19 games, and they've granted that you had two clubs you're playing at the Adelaide Oval, so there is that. So the club had 5 players this past year, who averaged over 20 disposals per game, and all of them played at least 22 games. I think there were 8 the previous year, if I remember on this question. There were 10. I remember because I updated this question. There were 10 players, I remember you trying to run through that list there, but there were 5 that averaged over 20 disposals this year. Who are they?
Jai Newcomb,
That's one.
Warple,
That's two.
D'Ambrosio,
That's three.
uh, Connor Nash.
Nope. You've mentioned
Uh,
one of the other two, but not the other one tonight.
okay, Carl Amon have to be one.
That's one. Yep, that's the one you had not mentioned.
So do I need, is that two more or one more?
One more. You've got 4 out of 5 right now. So we're
Okay,
gonna give you the pass on this one. So you're gonna get this one right,
okay.
but
I'm just
let's
gonna
see if you can run the table.
I'm just gonna smash a name out and see if it lands. We'll go Dylan Moore.
James Sicily.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think he actually led the club, if I'm not mistaken. I think he actually led the club in disposals. No, no, no. I'm sorry. He was fourth, 21 and a half.
okay.
Newcomb was at the highest. Okay. Now, this player, he played in all 25 games last year. He led the club with 4.25 1 percenters per game. And he played in all 25 games. And you've not mentioned his name tonight.
I've not mentioned his name.
His name has not come up yet, which is kind of like that statistic.
Okay. Uh, mm, not Connor Nash. Gee.
He is a defender, as they usually are in this
Oh,
statistic.
Sam Frost.
Josh Weddle.
Josh Weddle. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Josh Weddle. Yep. At 4.25. Let's see here. Now, this player led the club with over 96.6 percentage of time on ground last year. So 96.6% of the time he was on the ground.
Again, it's probably going to be a backman, isn't it? Um, I'll go with I'll go Sicily again.
That's where you should have gone back to Sam Frost again.
Okay. Jeez, I've had a shocker, Craig.
Yeah. So, you got one of these. You've already mentioned one of these, but I'm going to ask it anyway. These two players kicked at least 36 goals for the club this past year.
Okay, so maybe all would be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I missed with this one with his name earlier, but I'm sensing I've got to get this one right. Dylan Moore.
That's correct. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And how many others kicked at least 20? You don't have to name them, but how many others do you think kicked at least 20?
I'd have to say Ginnivan,
Yeah.
Gunston, and Bruce.
Mm-hmm. That's 3 of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not bad. There's 3 other ones. Yeah.
Okay.
That's impressive.
Kelshire had a good
Yep.
season. Don't
Yep.
know if he kicked that. I don't know
He
if
did.
he.
He
Okay.
did kick more than 20. Yep.
Yeah. And maybe Cam McDonald.
Yeah, you got one other one,
Okay.
and you've talked about him a lot tonight.
So there's one more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Um, Jeez, I'm going to kick myself because I I actually don't know, Craig.
Sherlock Holmes would get this one.
I know. I said Dylan Moore, didn't I?
Yeah, he was one of the top two. Yep.
Yeah. So Moore, Gunston, Bruce,
Yep. You mentioned him already. Nick
Gorn.
Watson's the last one.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, you mentioned that one right there. It was the 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 Sherlock Holmes reference was supposed to be get you to
Oh, geez. How,
Dr.
how slow am
Watson
I?
there. Sorry about
How
that.
slow am I? How slow am I today, Craig? I think I need to have a coffee or something. I don't even drink coffee, but I think I need to have one.
Yeah. Okay, now who kicked more goals in their Hawks career? Lance Franklin or Jared Ruffhead?
It'd have to be Ruffy, wouldn't it?
Ruffy kicked 578. Franklin kicked 580.
Oh, jeez. Oh, geez, you got me again. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, their careers were so similar, weren't they? Even though that, yeah, obviously Franklin left a lot earlier than
Yeah.
Roughhead, but yeah, actually Franklin's come back to the club for quite a few things, which has been great to see. So yeah, it's great to have
And
him
and
back.
and that's somebody who's definitely, I think from what I've gathered, has enjoyed staying out of the spotlight. He's not somebody that is maybe as comfortable as other people and, kind of having, all the attention really paid to him.
Yeah,
So it's awesome that he's kind of getting back involved with the club because he had a phenomenal first career there and a great second career in Sydney.
he did. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, he had a wonderful career, and he seems very happy. With his family. He's got a young family now, and not sure if he's still living up in Sydney, but he's definitely been back to the club, which for us Hawks fans, it's been wonderful.
Okay. Now this is the last question I'm going to ask you here. Okay. Um, and this player led the club with a total of 137 tackles last year. He had 130. He had the most tackles on the club last year. And I don't think you've mentioned his name tonight.
It's tackles. It's got to be either Newcombe or Nash. I'll
Pick one.
I'll
You've
go with
mentioned one of them.
Nash.
You haven't mentioned. There you go.
Yeah, yeah,
Connor
go with
Nash.
Nash.
Yeah, his name had not come up yet tonight. So that was
Okay.
yeah. So, we're thinking top four is a possibility, top eight's more of a likelihood, but you could find positives if they didn't make it. But since Kane Corn said they're winning the premiership, we're going to go ahead and carve that into granite right now, right?
Well, if
You
Kane,
yeah.
yeah, if Kane Corn said it, then it must be true.
Yeah, you'd be
Um,
you'd be
it,
okay if that happened, right?
oh yeah,
Yeah, you're not one of those people who is like, man, I don't like Kane Corns. You know what? He did protect our club. I don't care. I don't like him. I don't want us to win because I want him to be wrong.
no, absolutely. I actually quite like Kane Corns.
Yeah.
Again, he he's quite brash in his opinions and his takes, and I think he's definitely kind of created, I guess, a niche for himself using, I guess, the American sports media
Yeah.
way of doing things,
Which
which I don't have a problem with, as long as he's not as long as he's not attacking players personally or anything like
right.
that. I quite enjoy, some of his opinions and takes. But
And I,
yeah,
and
look,
I I think he's rather pragmatic too. I think he's not a free. A lot of people um go to the Mary Poppins approach, and the whole spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. Kane Corns is just take your damn medicine. I don't.
yeah,
We're not getting the sugar out of the cupboard. Just take your damn medicine. He's just going to tell you how it is, and it doesn't. It doesn't matter if it tastes like crap. It's medicine. It's supposed to taste like.
I like that analogy, Craig. That's great.
It's that one actually just popped into my head right there, and I don't know why I was thinking. I actually just bought a few new movies that just showed up, and I just put them on my list of DVDs that I keep a spreadsheet of my DVDs so I don't get duplicates of them.
Oh, you got a
Because
catalog.
yeah, yeah, I have a catalog. I'm close to 1,100 of them.
No kidding.
No kidding. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
I'm
that's
I'm a,
great.
I'm a bit of a movie buff. I actually have a Blu-ray player that's not plugged in, so when the EMP goes off and destroys the electrical grid, I've got I've got a Blu-ray player ready to go. All I have to do is find a generator to run it on and an old TV that's not been plugged in to watch them on, and I'll be all set. So
Love it. That's great.
yeah. So Ozzy, I know you've got someplace that you've got to be, and I do appreciate you taking time to sit down and chat with me on a Friday morning because it's a this was awesome that we were able to do this during the week. I appreciate you carving out some time for me. This was a lot of fun. Um, I, I I love kind of being the opposite side of a coin to you, being the NFL fan who fell in love with footy, and you're the footy fan who fell in love with the NFL, and I don't think they have Reese's peanut butter cups in Australia, do they?
They do now.
They do
Yes.
now.
So,
Okay.
so funny story. A good mate of mine from Chicago, who I met through the Bears,
Hmm.
who listens to the show actually. Well, yeah, I'll take a step back. So I sent him a bunch of stuff with Tim Tams and
Yeah.
Vegemite, and he didn't care too much for the Vegemite, as
Well,
you
he
can
he can
imagine.
ship it off to me because
Yeah,
I don't know if you can
he
see right over
yeah, I could
there.
see that. I could
There's
see that.
24 empty jars right behind Catman's headband there. I keep my empties up there. I've got 24 empties that I've gone through in about the last 2.5 years. I absolutely love it.
Craig, we're gonna have to get you an Australian citizenship or something, mate. I think you've passed the test. So I sent him a whole bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
including a jersey and that sort of thing, and then he sent one back, which had the Reese's peanut butter cups,
Okay.
and he sort of said, "Have you ever had one of these?" I'm like, "No," and he goes, "Mate, have one of these. They're going to blow your mind,"
Yeah.
and they are terrific. But yes, no, to answer your question, they're in supermarkets now in
Okay.
Australia. You can get them
Well,
quite
I
quite easily.
apologize. I apologize on behalf of the United States for helping to spread obesity to Australia. They are awesome, but there used to be commercials on television, that used to hear that used, you got, people going around eating peanut butter out of a jar and, people eating a chocolate bar and they bump into each other and, oh, you got chocolate in my peanut butter. Oh, you got peanut butter on my chocolate. And then well, we can make these Reese cups out of it. It's just, it's, yeah. So that's where I was going with that when I
It's
mentioned that. So,
it's a match
yep.
made in heaven, peanut butter and
Yeah,
chocolate.
it is. It is. And, yeah, trust me, I'm way too familiar with that sort of thing, which I'm trying. I've done a really good job of getting away from all that sort of thing, but yeah, a lot of frozen berries now is what I tend to go for now. That's kind of my candy now. So,
Good for you,
but
mate.
yeah,
Very good.
Ozzy, I appreciate you taking time out of your day, sir. I hope you have a fantastic Friday. I think your club's going to be a heck of a lot of fun to watch. I think the bright lights will not be too bright for them this year. Um, I, I I think that being confident is maybe a good word to describe them. I think they're supremely confident. So
I like that. Supremely
yeah,
confident.
supremely confident.
That's the line. That's the
Yeah.
line right there.
Yes. And I
No, I
and
love it.
I
But
and like I said, as a cat supporter, I'm not supposed to be saying that, but I think it's too good of a side. And I've not had a Hawk supporter, you know, give me too much grief. I love sledging on Richmond, and Carlton's the one that I like to not give the time of day to, and it's really
don't we all?
selfish. It's selfish because I was supposed to be on the one of the radio shows there on SEN one day, and it was it was right before the grand final, and I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to be on, and I got an email. Oh well, we had to bump you off of this episode because the Blues hired Michael Voss. So they're going to spend the day
Ah,
talking about them
okay.
hiring Michael Voss. So I got bumped. It was the Sporting Capital I was supposed to go on, and I got bumped off of that and never did end up back on there again. So that's why I like that club. I would love to see the Blues get to the grand final and lose on a final kick. If they're gonna have to get there.
Oh,
Yeah,
jeez. Wouldn't that be nice?
yeah.
I shouldn't
Or
say that.
on
Sorry,
a
Carlton fans. But yeah,
or
no, look,
some
no,
player
look,
making
I
a
was just gonna,
mistake and some player making a mistake and having, taking the ball over for a rushed behind, giving them a 1 point loss, and they're going, "Oh, we're running out of time."
yeah, those poor Carlton fans.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've been through a lot. But no, look, thanks for having me, Craig, and well done on the podcast. You're doing amazing work, and I'll return the favor and say to your cats, hopefully you guys have a good season as well, for your sake. And yeah, keep up the great
it's
work,
gonna
mate, and
it's good.
bring on the footy season.
It's going to be interesting. There's a lot of changes down there as well. I mean, they're getting a little bit younger, but they're getting there. But Ozzie, I appreciate it, man. Have a fantastic weekend. I hope the weather is wonderful. And if you'd like me to send some snow and cold your direction, I'll be more than happy to do it.
Maybe just hold off.
Okay.
We're enjoying the
I
warmth right now.
I spoke to a friend of mine up in Queensland yesterday, and it was 47 Celsius at his house.
Yeah, that's too much.
Holy mackerel.
You can keep
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think it's 116 Fahrenheit for those of you who are listening. We did the math on it. Unbelievable. Cheers, man. Have a great day.
Thanks, Craig.
You bet.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye. All right, Ozzie, thanks so very much for hopping on and chatting with me today. I think it's going to be a banner year for your Hawks. I think it was a bit of a surprise for a lot of people, maybe not for you, that they made the leap that they did, but my gosh, are they a fun club to watch play football. Ladies and gents, again, as I mentioned before, I hope you'll head over to my website, ayankonthefooty.com. I do hope you'll consider leaving a review for the podcast on your favorite platform, on Apple or Spotify, or at my website. You can also leave a review there as well. And if you'd like to be a guest, if you've got a great story to tell about the game, or you know somebody has a great story to tell, I do hope you'll also reach out to me as well and drop me a note there, or to yankonthefooty@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. And I love talking to fans of the game, people involved in the game from every level, all over the sport. So I do hope you'll do that. Remember, folks, share the show with your friends and family, and also subscribe over on YouTube as well. Look out for one another. Check up on your friends. Make sure that they're okay. If you're in need of talking to somebody, please reach out, talk to somebody. Don't keep that inside of you. I've been dealing with that, and myself, and I'm getting out of the funk that I was in, but don't be afraid to reach out and talk to somebody if you need to do that, okay? The world's a much better place with you here, and we want you here a long, long time. So, folks, share the episode with your friends and family, and until next time, may your dribble kick never hit the post. I will catch you later. And this has been episode 363 of A Yank on the Footy. Don't forget to reach out at Yank_on over on X, A Yank on the Footy podcast on Facebook, A Yank on the Footy on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. Look for my name, Craig Wessels. Reach out on a yankonthefooty@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, cheers and goodbye.